They can't be doing that. That would be unethical. Let's hear it.
He knows he's guilty.
Let's hear the excuse.
He's
Okay. You have Trey in there helping you? I guess he was helping you. Should we call him? We have a intercom in the building. Should we call him? Page him?
can't even. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 28th, 2003 meeting of the Haltom City Council. We have a couple of our members not here tonight. Councilmember Hurley and Councilmember Henderson are both ill, but we do have a quorum present, and we're now ready to proceed with the meeting as established by the agenda. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Phil Jennings. If you will stand for both of those events, please.
Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for our many blessings. We give thanks, O Lord, for the men and women of the armed forces and the fact that they're willing to put their lives on the line to assure us the freedom to gather here. We ask that you watch over us tonight as we conduct this meeting. Lead, guide, and direct us that the decisions we make here would glorify your name and the name of your only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. For it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation to make tonight. This is Municipal Clerks Week. Following that, I have a presentation on behalf of the mayor and the council in recognition of David Soriano, our media specialist. So we'll take care of both of those at this time. Ms. Bernard, will you join me at the podium, please? It is my pleasure, on behalf of the mayor and the council, to proclaim April 27th through May the 3rd, 2003 as Municipal Clerks Week and to make this presentation to you. Whereas the office of municipal clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government that exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants and serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and the agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality and to render equal service to all, and whereas municipal clerks continually serve to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through their participation in educational programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, their province, their county, their international professional organizations. Now, therefore, I, Calvin White, Mayor of the City of Haltom City, on behalf of the Council, do hereby recognize the week of April 27th through May the 3rd, 2003 as Municipal Clerks Week in Haltom City. And we extend to you and to Brenda our appreciation for the vital services you perform and the exemplary dedication you have to our community.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I know Brenda wishes to thank you too. And we've both considered it a great honor to be associated with the municipal clerks and city secretaries. Thank you.
These municipal clerks make things happen, and I have been benefited during my term as mayor so much by city secretary, the municipal clerks that we have. The second presentation I will make at this time on behalf of the mayor and the council is to David Soriano. David? We have before us one of our own, a real celebrity. Let me tell you a little bit about this. David has won, because of his expertise in the area of the media and media functions, he's won a Telly Award. And we want to be sure we recognize David and tell him how proud of him we are and how benefited Haltom City is to have him as our media specialist, all of the nice things he does. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to David Soriano, whereas the Telly Awards was founded in 1980 with the intention of showcasing and recognizing outstanding non-network cable television commercials, programs, and film and video productions. And whereas in the 23 years since its beginning, the Telly Awards has become a well-known, highly respected national competition and is one of the most sought-after awards in the TV, commercial, and video industry. And whereas production companies throughout the United States enter this annual competition, which is scored by a panel of 20 highly qualified production professionals from across the nation who were former Silver Telly Award winners themselves. And whereas this year the competition attracted over 10,000 entries, with only 7 to 10% of those entries being awarded the prestigious Silver Telly Award. And whereas in February 2003, David Soriano, Haltom City's television media specialist, won a prestigious Silver Telly Award for a program that he had produced for the Haltom City Government Access Channel concerning the recently opened Nancy P. Watkins Animal Care and Adoption Center. Now, therefore, I, Calvin White, Mayor of the City of Haltom City, and on behalf of the City Council and all of our citizens, do hereby wish to express our congratulations to David Soriano for his achievement and wish him continued success in his future endeavors.
I'd just like to thank the mayor and council members, both past and present, for the support they've given to the department over the last few years. And thanks a lot.
David, please stay at the podium for just a moment. Members of the council, Richard may have something they'd like to say. Yeah, John?
I'd just like to thank Dave for what he's done for the city. He's been here probably about as long as I have, or about the same time. And he has made a lot of stuff for the city. I know that hasn't been really exciting for him. And he's always been there behind the camera with a smile on his face. And he's made me believe that he loves every bit of it. And for the people that's watching via TV tonight, here's your chance to see the guy that's bringing you the TV. He's up behind the cameras, and he gets to sit in the back in his little room back there. But David, you do an excellent job for us, and we appreciate you, and congratulations on your award.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just extend what Councilmember Williams had to say. David, you do a wonderful job. I had the occasion, I guess, a year and a half ago to be in his little office, and it's a small office, a lot of equipment in there. I walked in there, and I would guarantee you it's at least 100 degrees with all that equipment running. But David, you do a wonderful job, and a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and your work does not go unnoticed. And I sincerely appreciate you and the work that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Markham.
Other members of the council, any comments? Mr. Torres.
Most people don't probably realize this, but David runs a one-person department back there. I'm a little bit concerned. Who's back there right now, David? Nobody. Thanks.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Always.
Thank you.
One of the things, David, I've been impressed with as I talk with our citizens is how many of our citizens watch HCTV and watch these council meetings. and are very informed because of that. And your expertise, what you do with all of this technology and cameras and that type of thing, is a great blessing and a great benefit to all of us in Haltom City. So again, thank you very much, and the Telly Award, an award well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the last several council meetings, we've been showcasing our various boards and commissions, and I believe this is the last one. According to the alphabet, Z is the last letter, the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And here tonight to make a presentation to us to tell us what the Zoning Board of Adjustment is, how it functions, who the members are, is the chairperson, James White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, citizens of Haltom City. My name is James M. White, Jr. I'm acting chairperson of the Haltom City Zoning Board of Adjustments. The Zoning Board of Adjustments consists of 9 members, including our alternate members. The members are citizens appointed by the mayor and the city council. The functions of the Zoning Board of Adjustments in literal scope are very complex, so I will attempt to make this presentation as comprehensive for everyone as possible. The board's primary function is to grant or deny variances and special exceptions to the terms of the zoning ordinance that are consistent with the general purpose and interest of the ordinance and in accordance with any applicable rules contained in the ordinances. So, that may bring to your mind the question, what is a variance? A variance is defined by the 6th edition of the Black's Law Dictionary as permission to depart from the literal requirements of a zoning ordinance by virtue of unique hardship due to special circumstances regarding a person's property. The purpose of a variance is to prevent the unconstitutional application of the zoning ordinance. Second, it is in the nature of a waiver of the strict letter of the zoning law upon substantial compliance with it and without sacrificing its spirit and purpose. It is an authorization to a property owner to depart from literal requirements of zoning regulations and utilization of his property in cases in which strict enforcement of the zoning regulations would cause undue hardship. In reality, a variance actually sanctions violations of the strict technical terms contained in a zoning ordinance. An administrative official of a city cannot approve a variance. So what is a special exception? A special exception refers to uses that a zoning ordinance permits, but that are screened and specially approved by the Board of Adjustment for situational suitability. Special exceptions do not require a showing of hardship, unlike variances. As a practical matter, most special exceptions are handled by many cities as special use permits. There is no authority to grant a special exception unless the zoning ordinance specifies that special exceptions may be granted. Thus, a zoning ordinance should specify the conditions that must be met for a special exception to be granted, or the standards that a zoning board of adjustment is to employ when granting a special exception. The zoning board of adjustment has many strict state and municipal guidelines we as a board must encompass into our criteria when granting or denying a variance or special exception. The zoning board of adjustment is a quasi-judicial body. All rulings are final, as the city council or the city administration has no review authority over the board. All appeals of the decisions of this board must be presented to a state district court within 10 days of the decision of the board. The Zoning Board of Adjustment in Haltom City is actually 3 boards in one. It's the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Housing Board, and the Sign Board. I've kind of gone over the zoning primary function of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Now I'll go over the primary function, the Housing Board. The Housing Board's primary function, in a nutshell, is to rule on the future disposition of a dwelling brought forth to the board by the Chief Code Enforcement Officer, such as a dwelling is to be renovated, demolished, etc. The Sign Board, it grants or denies variances which may determine the height, size, width, structure, etc. of a sign within our city limits. Although the Zoning Board of Adjustment is made up of a diverse group of dedicated citizens, the functions of this board would be practically impossible without the professional support we receive from a handful of people. First, Mr. James Pliska, Haltom City's Planning Director, and his assistant, Mrs. Linda Huff. Without them, we would be lost, and the board thanks them very, very much. Second, our board liaison, Councilmember John Williams, whose input the board appreciates greatly, and we thank you for that. Also, our former board liaison, who's not here tonight, Councilmember Bob Hurley, who still attends a lot of our meetings just because he cares. We also thank him a lot. Also, once in a great while, one of our board members, who goes by the nickname of Jimbo, tries to get out of line. Then we have our extremely capable city attorney, Mr. Wayne Olson, and his associates, to put him back in line. The board would also like to thank Mr. Olson for his help in the past. Mr. Mayor, this concludes my presentation, and I thank you all.
If you will remain at the podium, Mr. White, for just a moment, I want to say just a couple of things. Having served on the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the past, I understand the value and the importance of what you and your board do for the citizens of Haltom City. And I would like for you, if you would, to express to them our appreciation. These are tough issues sometimes, and somebody has to make a decision, and your board does that. Do you have members of the zoning board here with you tonight that you'd like to introduce?
No, sir, I don't see any of them in the audience tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, to tell you the truth, none of them show up tonight.
Okay, members of the council, any comments, questions for Mr. White? Councilmember Williams?
Mr. White, I'd just like to thank you and the board for the job you do. We know there's a lot of hours go in, a lot of research, and we've had during the last 5 years, I've met some really quality people that serve on that board. Extend them our thanks. I've enjoyed working with you. I look forward to working with you the next year. And y'all do a good job, and they get paid absolutely zero. So they're well worth the money.
Well, thank you, Mr. Williams. We appreciate that, sir.
Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to tell Mr. White that, and the Zoning Board of Adjustments, that thank them for the hard work that they do. We get $10 a meeting. They don't get anything but a thank you. And very rarely do you get that. But we do thank you for the job that y'all do.
We appreciate that, Mr. Markham.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Mr. White as well as the Zoning Board of Adjustment members. This being the concluding presentation tonight from all our other board and commission members, I'd like to just thank all of them. I think the citizens now might have a better opportunity to see what all goes on in the city, and that a lot of the decisions that are made by this council are part of the input that's given to us by boards and commissions, which are citizens just like us as well as y'all in the viewing audience. It's a vital part of our community, and you guys do a lot of the groundwork for the council and for the other citizens, and we do appreciate that, not only to just the Zoning Board of Adjustments, but all the people who volunteer on all the different board and commissions. Thank you.
I'm sure I'm speaking for all the boards when I say thank you for them too, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. White. We appreciate your presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We move now to the consent agenda. That consists of items number 3, 4, and 5. These items are self-explanatory. They will be enacted by one motion from the council. And once these are approved, the city manager is authorized to implement each item according to the staff recommendations. I'm in line for motion. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, Mayor, I move for approval of the consent agenda with consideration of the comments made by Councilmember Williams and pre-council in accordance with the minutes, the recording of the minutes.
We have a motion. Councilmember Williams.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Councilmember Avery.
That's for a second, Mayor.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you will register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote of the council. We come now to item number 6. This is a public hearing. It will be introduced by our planning director, Mr. James Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, citizens of Haltom City. This is public hearing and action on P004-03. Conduct a public hearing for the application of Mr. Ernest Hedgecoth, Consulting Engineers Incorporated, on behalf of Jason Adams for the final plat of Lot 1, Block 1, Adams Addition, being a final plat of Tract 13D1 T-Acre Survey, Abstract 25, located on the west side of Thomas Road, containing approximately .4998 acres of land and locally known as 2317 Thomas Road. After the public hearing, there will be consideration and action regarding the final plat of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Adams Addition, being a final plat of Tract 13D1 T-Acre Survey, Abstract 25, located on the west side of Thomas Road, containing approximately .4998 acres of land and locally known as 2317 Thomas Road. As stated, the applicant is final platting the property to develop the site. This will be a residential development. This property is zoned D, duplex residential, but with the zoning amendment of last year, that is an allowed zoning for single family. All the utility companies have been contacted. I list for you the utility locations. Access, of course, will be from Thomas Road. Fire protection is addressed through the necessary statements. Developer has been notified that sidewalks need to be installed. However, there is an accompanying variance with this. Parkland dedication fees have been met. $250 will be paid prior to filing of the plat. I therefore formally submit for your review the 11:17 reduced copy of this plat. And finally, the recommendation at their meeting on April 8th, 2003, the P&Z Commission unanimously recommended approval of final plat 004-03 to the City Council as it meets the minimum requirements of the City Subdivision Ordinance.
Okay, members of the council, any questions for Mr. Pliska on his presentation before I open the public hearing? There being none, I'll open the public hearing at this time. And Mr. Adams, are you in the audience? Mr. Hedgecote?
I just wanted to represent Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams lives in Colorado right now, and I've been in contact with the builder, Mr. Burks, and he's ready to construct a single-family residence on this property. This is just a long, skinny piece of property. It's only 67 feet wide on Thomas Road there, and we'll talk about the sidewalk in a minute. But anyway, I do recommend that you approve it. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
If you would, we know who you are, and most of the people in the audience know, but we may have some in our TV audience that may not know.
I'm Ernest Hedgecoth, a consulting engineering firm.
Okay.
The largest engineering firm in Haltom City, by the way. Thank you.
Great. Members of the council, any questions for Mr. Hedgecote? Do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to speak either for or against this request? Okay. There being none, I'll close the public hearing, and we move now to give consideration and take action regarding this final plat. Councilmember Fowler.
Mayor, I move for approval of plating item number P004-03 on first reading.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Markham.
Second.
Have a motion, a second on this item, number 6. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, gentlemen, register your vote. And the display shows that having passed unanimously. We move now to item number 7. Mr. Pliska, would you like to introduce that item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is said variance that was mentioned earlier. On this plat, consideration and action regarding variance to the City Subdivision Ordinance Article 12-100, improvements required as to the sidewalk requirements on Lot 1, Block 1, Adams Edition, and this is P004-03 variance. It is a variance asking for relief on the sidewalk requirement. I formally submit the applicant's letter of February 26, 2003, asking for said relief. At their meeting on April 8, 2003, the P&Z Commission voted 5-1 to deny this sidewalk variance.
Any questions, gentlemen, for Mr. Pliska? There being none, I am now ready for action, for discussion, for the council's response to item number 7. Councilmember Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we had spoken in pre-council, this is an issue that we've kicked around, and I know the Planning and Zoning Commission, as we talked about the efforts that they put forth in trying to present new ideas to the City Council. One thing that had been brought up, and having the opportunity, as the Mayor said, to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission a little more than a year ago, we've looked at this issue about granting variances and providing an opportunity for a developer to put funds in lieu of placing sidewalks or having this sidewalk variance. What I would like to see is these funds provide the opportunity for a variance, but if a citizen chooses to not put the sidewalk issue in or not take the sidewalk issue and place sidewalks, that there be an opportunity for them to place funds in lieu of these sidewalks, very similar to the parkland dedication that was just previously passed on agenda item number 6. We have a opportunity for that developer to put $250 in escrow that goes towards the park department for parkland dedication or park improvements. What I would recommend that we do is, in the Planning and Zoning Commission's working on it currently. Is that correct, Mr. Pliska?
Yes, sir. We had at the last P&Z meeting, we didn't have any items on the agenda, so we set up a workshop for that, and we met for approximately 2.5 hours on the issue.
And the gist of what they're trying to get at is providing an opportunity for these developers or anyone who comes in and does a residential commercial property to put funds up in lieu of, and then possibly the city could use those for sidewalks in other areas or public safety type things, maybe school crossings or whatever the case may be.
That is correct. They discussed a possible fee assessment based on development or redevelopment through the amendment of the city subdivision ordinance, and also a priority ranking system for that fund to be utilized in certain areas of the city.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. If there's any questions, if not, when you get ready, I'm ready for a motion on it.
Councilmember Williams?
I have one question, Mr. Pliska. The one person on the board that voted not to deny the sidewalk variance, what was his reason for wanting to allow? Do you know? Could you condense that for us?
I really believe that it was Mr. Allen, because he had a conflict of interest, because he felt like he had pursued one and was granted one earlier, and he didn't want to vote on this particular issue. It says Mr. Elliott, but I believe it was Mr. Allen, and it was due to that reason.
All right.
Any further questions, Councilmember Williams?
No, sir, not this time.
Councilmember Fowler, I believe we're in line for a motion regarding item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we table agenda item number 7, which is P-004-03 variance until, do we need time specific on that tabling?
No, yeah, I would recommend that you state until the Planning and Zoning Commission makes its recommendation to the council on how to handle sidewalk issues.
Okay, Mr. Pliska, do you feel like, 2 weeks to a month, we should have the issue back?
We're shooting for our first meeting in May to consider this item, possibly as an action item, if we get all the items ironed out in terms of design standards that we'll be requesting through the ordinance amendment. And then we'll bring it to council, and if council is in agreement, it will of course take 2 readings of the ordinance.
Correct.
For passage.
Okay, so I would propose that we table this until no sooner than the second meeting of May, or until
possibly
the P&Z.
into June.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But we will not slow down the project as discussed in the briefing that sidewalks one of the last items to go in this type of a development, so it should be sufficient enough time for us to review this.
Okay. Let's just put it then not so time specific until you have the opportunity to bring us back the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
But we will be doing this as soon as possible. We had a great discussion on this, and they have given staff guidance on the necessary amendments, and we'll hammer it out with legal.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for y'all's hard work on that.
Thank you, sir.
So the motion is to just table this indefinitely without a time attached to it to give planning and zoning an opportunity to bring a recommendation and for us to take action.
Yes, sir. And if they're not able to do that by, say, the last meeting in May, I may ask that it just be brought back up at that time.
Okay. Councilmember Averett?
That's for a second, Mayor.
Councilmember Williams?
I've got a question for the largest engineer in Haltom City.
Yes, sir.
If this is approved, with the exception of the sidewalk variance, when do you anticipate construction to start?
Just as soon as I can get Mr. Adams' signature on the final plat, and he's got I sent it up there last week when the P&Z approved. As soon as I can get it back.
10 days?
Mr. Burks has had his plans ready for construction for about a month now, so I would say as soon as we get the plat filed, they'll be starting construction.
And do you know what the building time will be?
I would guess a month and a half, 2 months. This is just a residential, small residential.
Is this going to be a frame home or a brick home?
It'll be a frame home, yes. Well, it'll be brick veneer. It'll have to be wooden frame with brick veneer. It'll be very similar to the one that's just north of Midway. It's about halfway up the block towards High Tower on the right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's the
Highland, I mean.
High Tower's
Highland.
It's a different city.
Wrong city. No, it'll be very similar to that one.
You're in
brick
Haltom
frame,
City.
brick veneer.
Thank you.
But they'll probably start construction, I'd say, within a week or so, as soon as I can get Mr. Adams' signature on the plat.
Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote of the council. Item number 8 is also a public hearing. Mr. Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor. Public hearing and action on P020-02. Conduct a public hearing for the application of Mr. Daniel Sines for the final plat of lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 2, Jonesville Edition, located on the southeast corner of Midway and McGuire Roads, containing approximately .795 acres of land located in the 5900 block of Midway Road and the 2300 block of McGuire. Consideration and/or action will follow regarding the final plat of lots 1 through 4, Block 1, Sines Edition, being a replat of lots 1 through 3, excuse me on that, it's 1 through 3, Block 2, Jonesville Edition, located on the southeast corner of Midway and McGuire Roads, containing approximately .795 acres of land and located in the 5900 block of Midway Road and the 2300 block of McGuire. Again, the applicant is final platting this property in order to develop the site for a single-family structure. It is zoned currently SF2, single-family, and some of the other lots you're seeing tonight is C1 commercial up towards Midway. All utility companies have been contacted. I list for you the existing utility location. Access, of course, is through both McGuire and Midway. There are no floodplain issues. Developer has been notified that sidewalks need to be installed along the frontage of Lot 3 on McGuire. He has accepted as such. The applicant has submitted payment to the city in the amount of $250 for the parkland dedication fee. Therefore, I formally submit the 11:17 reduced copy for your review. At their meeting on April 8, 2003, the P&Z unanimously recommended approval of final plat P20-02 to the City Council as it meets the minimum requirements of the city subdivision ordinance.
Since this is a public hearing, I'll give the council an opportunity before I open the public hearing to ask any questions for Mr. Pliska regarding this item. Okay, there being none, I open the public hearing at this time. Mr. Saines, are you in the audience tonight? Do you wish to address the council or just be available if they have any questions? Okay. Do we have anyone in the audience wishing to speak either for or against this application by Mr. Saines? Okay, there being none, I will close the public hearing on this item at this time, and we move now to consideration and action regarding this final plat. What is the pleasure of the council regarding item number 8?
David.
Councilmember Averett.
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve agenda item number 8.
We have a motion by Councilmember Averett to approve. Councilmember Williams. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, if you'll register your vote, gentlemen. And the display shows unanimous vote of the council in favor of this motion. We move now to item number 9. Mr. Pliska, I believe this again is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Public hearing and action on P22-02. Conduct a public hearing for the application of Mr. Lorenzo Garcia, John Longbottom, and Donald Lawrence for the final plat of lots 9AR, 9BR, and 10, Block 5 of the WL Slates Edition, being a replat of Lot 9 and the final plat of tracks 7K and 7K5, J. Walker Survey, abstract 1654, located on the east side of Layton Avenue, containing approximately .359 acres of land, being 1910 and 1908 Layton Avenue and 1909 Oak Knoll Drive. Following that is consideration and action regarding the final plat of lots 9AR, 9BR, and 10, Block 5, WL Slates Edition, being a replat of Lot 9 and the final plat of tracks 7K and 7K5, J. Walker Survey, abstract 1654, located on the east side of Layton Avenue, containing approximately .359 acres of land, being 1910 and 1908 Layton Avenue and 1909 Oak Knoll Drive. Again, the applicant is final platting this and replating it for residential development. The property is zoned SF1 and SF2, single-family residential. All utility company contacts have been made. I list for you the existing utility locations. Access to the sites, of course, is through Layton and Oak Knoll. There are no floodplain designations, and it referenced firm map panel 295. Again, the developer has been notified that sidewalks need to be installed, and he has asked for relief, and that will be in the accompanying variance. The applicant will need to make payment to the city in the amount of $250 for the newly created residential lot. That amount must be paid before the final plat will be filed. I formally submit the 11/17 reduced copy of the final plat for your review. And final recommendation, at their meeting on April 8, 2003, the P&Z Commission unanimously recommended approval of final plat P22-02 to the City Council as it meets the minimum requirements of the city's subdivision ordinance.
Members of the council, any questions for Mr. Pliska on item number 9? Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Pliska, y'all didn't get any responses yet?
No, sir.
Okay, I've got one other question. If you look at your map that you give us, this green one here, property lines on the front of Layton, can you explain the jagged area, like 7R, 8B, 7K?
That was a right-of-way taking when 7R was replatted. Are you talking about those little jags inside? Right.
Okay, so that's...
It was not taken then on 8B, but it was taken again then on 7K and 7K6.
All the way down to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a very good point, because then at that point on 9C, that will have to be addressed if the street is to ever be widened.
Right. Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Pliska? Okay, there being none, I open the public hearing at this time. And Mr. Garcia, Mr. Longbottom, or Mr. Lawrence, or any of you gentlemen in the audience tonight, do you wish to address the council regarding this application, or just be available if the council has questions? Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak either for or against this application, since this is a public hearing? Okay, there being none, I close the public hearing, and we move now to give consideration and our action regarding this final plat. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve PO 2202.
Motion to approve, Councilmember Markham.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, I'll call for the vote at this time, and that passes by unanimous vote. Coming to item 10, this is the same issue as item number 7. May not require a whole lot of explanation, but Mr. Pliska, would you like to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is P22-02 variance for the former plat. Consideration and/or action regarding variance to the city's subdivision ordinance, Article 12-100, improvements required. as to the sidewalk requirements on Lot 10, Block 5, WL Slates Edition. And again, the applicant is asking for relief on this. I formally submit the applicant's letter of 12/12/2002 in which they asked for this relief. At their meeting on April 8th, 2003, the P&Z Commission voted unanimously to deny this sidewalk variance request.
Okay, any questions or comments regarding this request for variance? Councilmember Fowler.
We in line for motion, Mayor?
We're ready for a motion.
I move for tabling of P-022-02 variance with the same stipulations from agenda item number 7 that we table until we receive information back from Planning and Zoning Commission.
Councilmember Jennings.
It's for a second.
Councilmember Averett.
That was for a second, Mayor.
We have a motion to table under the same conditions as were identified or as defined under item number 7. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, there being none, I'll call for the vote. And that is a unanimous vote. We come now to the Visitor Citizens Forum, and I need to read this statement into the record that I read each time about what is happening. This time is set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to have an opportunity to speak to the council. All of the comments made at this time must be directed toward the presiding officer rather than to individual council members or staff. And each speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter listed on the speaker's request form and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. A 5-minute time limit will be granted. And the council cannot discuss or debate any issue brought forth at this time, nor can any formal action be taken, since this is not a posted agenda item in accordance with the Open Meetings Law. We do have tonight one request to appear before the council. Ms. Adrena Jennings Smith. She wishes to speak on the subject of vote. Would you like to come forward at this time and give us your name and address for the record, please?
Who is the presiding officer? I'm confused, so I talk to you.
Correct.
All the rest of y'all can leave the room. My name is Edrina Jennings Smith. I've been here before. And since I'm the only one here tonight, I called 3 other people and they couldn't come, so I have 20 minutes. Seriously, Saturday is voting day. I voted early. I want to apologize to everybody that I voted for. You fellas have a hard job trying to please Haltom City. You've got a bunch of senior citizens that's a little bit, I don't know what we'd call them, demented or senile. But, you know, you can talk old people into doing just about anything. Tonight, I would like to ask everyone to please vote. But you know, voting is a lot like prayer. Be careful what you ask for, or you might get it. Be careful who and what you vote for. When you vote for the increase in exemption for old people, think about that a minute. I think it's going to cost $40-some odd a year exemption. I believe that's what it is. But me, for one old person, I'd rather spend that $40-something odd to have police help and fire help before I go to the nursing home. Because when I get to the nursing home, I'm not going to need it. So old people, don't let folks talk you into anything. Think about it. Think about these fellas that are voting, that are running for council. Think about them. Think about the jobs they've done. Think about the ones that are trying to come in. Maybe they can do better than the ones that are their opponents. but maybe they can't. So weigh it before you vote. And I want to thank all of y'all for the job you've done for however long you've been here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We come now to the announcements and events portion of our agenda. Ms. Fran Burns, I believe you have an announcement, followed by Mr. Poliska and Ms. Staub and Councilmember Williams.
Council and Mayor and members watching the audience. I'm not really here to make an announcement. I would like to kind of reiterate some of the things that Keep Haltom City Beautiful and the Haltom City Beautification Board have been doing over the past several months. We every year participate in the Great American Cleanup, which is a Keep America Beautiful activity, and the whole point of the effort is to make your city a better place and to educate your residents. We have activities that begin in March and end in May, and including this year, the publication of our annual Beautification Board newsletter, promotion of our Free Landfill Day, the Texas Trash Off, which was the cleanup of the highway on April 5th, and I know a lot of you were there, and we appreciate that. Also, this past Saturday, we did an Earth and Arbor Day celebration out across from Haltom High School. And also on Saturday, I know James Plisk is going to talk about this, is we had our official kickoff of Clean Sweep 2003 with a dumpster day, which was very successful. That was an opportunity for people to really clean up. But our event, our Arbor Earth Day event, was an opportunity to educate our residents and our youngsters. And out at the Birdville Environmental Study Center, which, as I say, was across the street from Haltom High School on Big Fossil Creek, we did such things as give away trees. We planted trees. We trimmed the trails in the study center. We picked up 20 bags of litter, found a bunch of snakes, and we did some water activities and taught children about non-point source pollution. The Buttmobile was there, our famous Buttmobile, and I wanted to thank those that helped us put this all together, especially Birdville Schools, our board members, who of course are all volunteers, students from Bethesda Christian School, Haltom High School, Spicer Elementary, Haltom City Public Works, which helped us with our mulch, and J. Davis Tree Service, who donated our mulch. So we thank all of these wonderful companies and volunteers that helped. And I wanted to say a little bit about the Birdville Environmental Study Center, which is on school property. That is something that we developed as volunteers several years ago, back in 1992. And basically it's an outdoor classroom, and it's a perfect spot because it's on the creek. There's also a forested area and a prairie area. And every year the Northeast Environmental Team, which is our nonprofit cooperative organization of Haltom City, North Richland Hills, and Watauga, we host a camp for kids, and we take kids out there and teach them about the environment with hands-on activities. So if you haven't been out there, I hope you will visit it and walk the trails. I know that we had some newcomers this year that actually saw it for the first time. So I thank you for the opportunity of sharing this information with you, and I'll turn it over to James.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Mr. Pliska, what about Dumpster Day?
Thank you, Mayor. Dumpster Day was a good day on Saturday. We were allowed to use the Haltom Trust properties, which was adjacent to the McDonald's there at Belknap and Denton Highway. So we want to thank the Haltom Trust and Mr. Haltom for using his property there. We were able to fill 24 roll-off dumpsters with all types of household goods. And brush as well was taken in. I want to thank the Public Works Department, Mr. Fain and his group, for taking care of that brush for us. That would have gone into some of the containers, and we would have been just paying for basically space at that point. And therefore, we were able to receive more goods as a result of that. I want to thank my code and the staff that I supervised. Mr. Wes Cottongame was kind of the straw boss there and helping get everything in order. And I want to thank the citizens for their patience in waiting in line to participate in this. We did get a lot of participation. Again, 24 roll-offs that were compacted by Public Works personnel is quite a bit of trash. I want to thank the police department as well for helping us to route the traffic. We didn't receive any traffic complaints during this. So we had a very, very successful day. I think one of the most unique items that we took in was a boat. We were actually able to put it in one of the containers. But we had a good day.
Councilmember Williams.
Oh, yes, and above all else, that's a very good point. I want to thank IESI. We had their drivers running back and forth from 9 to 1, taking and dropping off those roll-offs. They did a great job. At one point, they brought their brush truck out to try to alleviate some of the brush problems, but he had hydraulic problems and had to leave. But overall, I felt we had a good, successful day. A lot of people pitching in. We actually saw neighbors helping neighbors at that point, unload, load, and get in and out as quick as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Pliska. Dumpster Day, a great success.
Great success. And again, as Fran said, that triggers Clean Sweep 2003. Code compliance crews have started as of today, going through neighborhoods with checklists. We'll be leaving these door hangers on residences that have some code compliance to do, and they will then have 10 days to address these issues, and we will work closely in these districts to help alleviate some of the code issues.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Our City Secretary, Brenda Staub, has some information about an election coming up, or that already underway.
I want to remind everyone that tomorrow, Tuesday, from 8 to 5 is the last day for early voting, and that Saturday is Election Day from 7 to 7 at the police storefront off of Denton Highway. Please come out and vote.
Councilmember Williams, I believe you have
Yes, sir, I've got a couple. First, a little takeoff on what Mr. Pliska said a while ago with ISI. They've been a very good neighbor to the city of Haltom City. And in conjunction with the roll-off day, they had, when we did the contract a few years ago, renewed the contract with ISI, that was a portion of the contract that they would furnish the dumpsters for us to be able to fill. So that's a special thing. That's part of our progress that we got together and worked out when we did the contract with them. So we're reaping some of the benefits from that. Also, it may be just a little early, but the 4th of July is right around the corner, and we're welcome entries in the parade. All entries in the parade, we urge you to decorate with red, white, and blue. There'll be riders, motorcycles, band, floats. It says walkers. I'm sure we're talking about people that are walking, handing out like the beautification board. I'm sure we'll be handing out littered bags. To register for this, you can call Sherry at Public Works. The phone number down there is 817-834-9036. Again, that's 817-834-9036. The parade will start at 10 a.m. Participants will assemble at the International Faith Center. That's at the corner of Stanley Keller and Denton Highway. And it will proceed south. And it will, we probably don't have the final route yet, but we will work our way into the Haltom Road Park, which has been a very big success in the past. And saying that, I guess that's all I have. Just want to thank the citizens that did come out and take advantage of the dump day. And that's just a big part of what's going to be going on in Haltom City towards cleaning it up, and the city wants to be a partner in that. Thank you.
Any further announcements to be made at this time? Councilmember Jennings?
Just had one question for City Secretary. She mentioned the last day of early voting. I was just wondering if you could let everybody in on how many people have voted to this point.
As of today, there was 922 early voters.
We move now to item number 11, monthly financial report for March 2003. Our finance director with very important information for us, Mr. Pat Alfred.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11 is the March financial report for the city. It covers the general fund, the water fund, the crime control district, the economic development fund, and probably about 19 other funds that we do have here at the city. Not a great deal has changed since the last report that I presented to this council about 30 days ago. March does represent the halfway point through our fiscal year. Things are not looking a great deal worse. We haven't had a great deal of positive things happen either, though, unfortunately. In general, the negative trend that we have experienced for the past 6 months with regard to sales tax continues. Our payment for the February retail sales, which we receive that payment and is credited in the month of March, is about $40,000 less than the month of February 2 years ago. In municipal court revenues, we do have some positive trends in that area with some things picking back up to their normal levels of activity. We have a new process that's going on in municipal court that I guess is something that perhaps everyone who's in the television and perhaps council room audience would be interested in. We have a new process. We are sending out warning letters now for people who may have received a traffic citation. It warns them that they have 10 more days remaining before that ticket will become a warrant. We sent out about 400 of those in the month of March. The clerks in municipal court noticed a definite increase in activity a few days after those letters hit the mailboxes. That will continue on a monthly basis. We hope that that will encourage people to take care of the traffic tickets that they have received. Building permits is a significant part of the general fund's revenue. It's budgeted at $310,000. So far this year, we've received about $100,000. In preparing for the budget process this year, I've worked with the estimates that I've been provided by the Planning and Permits Division. It looks like there'll be a little bit of a shortfall there unless we have some unexpected construction activity take place somewhere in the city. Total expenditures for the general fund, the annual budget is a little over about $14.5 million. Total expenditures are currently at 48%, which is a significantly good sign. That's 2% under budget, you could say. That represents about $291,000. If we could maintain that trend for the rest of the year, and I believe it's very likely that we will actually exceed that by several more percent due to some plans that we have in place that we're working on to curtail expenditures, we could see a savings over $600,000-$700,000 if that trend were to continue. With regard to the water fund and the other funds that are covered in this report, there's really not anything significant that I'd like to comment on at this time. The city currently has about $23 million in its investment portfolio, earning an average of only 1.37%. However, we did recently buy some federal instruments that will earn 2.6% for a short period of time. It's just really tough right now to make any money in the investment market. Alan Greenspan, the Fed chairman, I have an article I cut out and put on my desk. So he didn't think that a 0% prime lending rate was absolutely unheard of. And if somebody had told me that, I wouldn't have believed it, but I've got it cut out on my desk. And that's a quote from his lips. That's all I have on this report. If there's anything from the council, I'll be glad to try and answer a question.
Councilmember Williams?
We got one question for you, and I don't know whether it be for you or the chief of police. On these tickets that we're writing and the people aren't responding to them, and we're going to send them a letter saying they have 10 days. Will that be 10 days from the postmark of the letter, 10 days of the date of the letter? Or?
I believe, I haven't looked at one of the letters specifically, but I suspect you give it a couple of days lead time, so about the time it hits their mailbox, that'd be the preferred way of doing it, that they have 10 days from the time it hits their mailbox.
And to be user-friendly, if they do not respond to this within that 10 days, will we be having fellowship with them?
Possibly, yeah.
I would like to see a follow-up on that because our water customers, if they're not paying their bills, we have fellowship with them, and I would like to have the same fellowship.
Well, it's a lot easier to locate someone's water meter and just go out there and turn it off, which is what we do. Unfortunately, with the warrants, it's a little tougher to find these people sometimes.
Let's try a little harder.
We will do that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Elfrink? Mr. Torres, we'd like to hear some comments from you at this time regarding the financial report, particularly in view of the downturn economy we're currently in. What's the status of the city regarding the report Mr. Elfrink has just made?
I believe, Mayor and Council, it's probably appropriate for me to comment on a few things. If I had to sum it up in one term, I think caution is probably the word that I would use. We've been monitoring the financial situation for some time now, and although we're not experiencing, we haven't depleted any of our fund balance to this point. We do anticipate that, given the current trend and the budget that was adopted, if we continue on, we would very likely draw down on our fund balance to the tune of $1 million to $1.5 million, a significant amount. What we have been working on is a plan of rather extreme curtailment in expenditures to offset that. I have briefed y'all just ever so slightly, and we've had a number of conversations about it, but it's expected or desired that the staff would have an opportunity in a special meeting on May the 6th to address this in a more specific way. We would proceed that meeting with a report to you of very specific things that we would like to do, and it's going to be real hard. Our situation here in Haltom City is not any different than it is in other parts, other cities in Texas, and even across the United States. I think the downturn economy that started really goes back to 9/11 and on or about that time. That trickle down is really hitting home here in Haltom City now. We've had a number of closures here in the city limits that have affected us in a kind of a big way. And we really even haven't seen the biggest impact of that, and we'll see that in the latter part of this fiscal year and certainly into next fiscal year. So we're not only preparing a plan to address our concerns within this fiscal year, but we're also planning to modify the budget for next year in some similar way that will reflect our current situation. Not really knowing what the economy is going to do, how long it's going to be like this. So I think there are a few tough times ahead for us. We have already started cutting back in a number of ways, but we would like to go ahead and jump out there and make a few more significant cuts, but certainly we don't want to do that until we've had an opportunity to brief the council. So May 6th, special meeting, I believe it was intended to be held to canvass the election, and that'll give us an opportunity, not having a regular agenda before us. We should just have plenty of time, I think, to brief you and give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. And there may be some people in the citizens that may attend that may also have some questions, and press as well. So we look forward to that, and if y'all have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Councilmember Jennings, I believe you have a question.
Thank you, Mr.
or a
Mayor.
comment.
This is a question for Richard. Richard, I'd like for you to clear something up that I heard over the weekend. There is some concern with some of the citizens out there that the city of Haltom City has already cut some of our fire and police in the form of layoffs, and are in the process of getting ready to cut 5 more fire positions, was what I heard. And I'd just like for you to clarify for everyone that at this point the city council has yet to meet on what it is that we're going to do, and nothing has really taken place as far as removing people from employment here or anything.
Let me address that. And public safety, police, and fire are usually the primary concern departments. There's by no means are they the small. They're the largest departments. They encompass the very largest part of our general fund operation. Fire department has been full staffed for the better part of this fiscal year, if not maybe the entire fiscal year since October 1st. Been completely fully staffed. It is fully staffed today, and we have not cut any positions out of there. There are some cuts that will very likely be recommended in this presentation to you on May 6th, but nothing has been done up to this point. In the police department, there are, I believe, 6 officer positions that have been vacant for some time, 5 officer positions. However, there was one today, a resignation. An officer is leaving here, going to another municipality. So we have frozen the other 5 positions that have been vacant. We've frozen those, but we've not vacated any positions. We've just only frozen those in the last 5-6 weeks ago, I guess, is when I implemented the hiring freeze. The one position today, I feel like we're getting a little bit too low. So today, the chief and I discussed the resignation that came, and I did authorize that one position to be filled because they have a person very likely lined up, already gone through the screening process.
I appreciate that, and that does clear up, things get started and people hear things,
Sure.
and then it tends to snowball, and we just want everyone out there to know that we take this very seriously. We have an excellent city staff, and they are reacting to the problems in the economy that we have right now, and we have 100% faith in their abilities. And then as a group, we're going to sit down immediately after the election and determine, what the course of actions we're going to take. And one of the reasons Richard wanted to put this off until after the election is because there's a possibility that there might be new faces up here. And we didn't want to make policy decisions for people who were yet to take their seat, so to speak. So I think that was a good idea also.
Just one other thing. It's very difficult decisions that are forthcoming, I think. But in my mind, there's really not a lot of options here. We can simply just continue on at the spending level that we've been and not do anything and draw down on our fund balance and general fund. And that's out of all the 19 or so funds that we have, the general fund is by and large the largest of those. And it's very important to the long-term financial integrity of this organization that we maintain fund balance. We're set to issue $8 million in bonds that have already been approved next year. It's potentially there could be $4 to $6 million in bonds that are being considered for issuance this year. The last thing the rating agencies want to see is a drawdown on fund balance. It will hurt our ratings severely if we go in there and do that. We have to make the necessary adjustments and cuts and not draw down on our fund balance. In my mind, there is no option. That is what we have to do. It's just a matter of determining what is the priority and what should be scaled back, what can be scaled back, and what can't. And that's what we're having some difficulty assembling our package, and then certainly there'll probably be some deviation from that based on input from the council.
Councilmember Jennings, anything further? Councilmember Williams.
Yeah, I was just going to get the city manager to reassure us that I believe this council and whatever council will be sitting here next month, fire and public safety is going to be our main priority, and we will make sure that we have the money to provide those services.
Any further comments regarding the monthly financial report?
I have one more thing to say. When the city manager said that, many other cities in the state and throughout the nation are experiencing these same problems, I had a chance to listen to a complete replay of the mayoral debates for the city of Dallas. I was cleaning the garage. But the problems that they face, by and large, are exactly the same problems that we are facing today, just on a different scale. And their priorities are about the same. The problems with the tax revenue that's been declining dramatically, trying to draw in business, trying to increase citizen participation. It was just the same story, just a larger scale.
I think that's a very important point that I want to be sure the citizens of Haltom City understand regarding this. This is not unique to Haltom City. Mr. Torres said that, you just stated that, but I want our citizens to understand that. In talking with my fellow mayors in Tarrant County, it's amazing the commonality we have with the downturn in the economy, the tough decisions. The city of Bedford had to make some adjustments to the tune of $1.2 million, and they did that within the last week or so. They had to make some tough decisions. So Haltom City is not unique in that regard, and we do have some challenges ahead, but we have staff, we have council, we have others in place to make responsible decisions. And I want all of our citizens in the Haltom City to know that we are taking this very seriously. Thank you, Mr. Elfrink.
Thank you.
Item number 12 we move to now, and that is our monthly capital improvement status report. All of the projects we have going on, and I think Mr. Muir may be able to tell us something about Carson Street that might be different than we've heard for the last 3.5 or 4 years. Mr. Muir, what's going on in capital improvements?
Yes, in Carson Street, it is substantially complete. Most of the people have noticed. Yeah, like I had a lot to do with it. All 5 lanes are open. So if there is somebody in Haltom City that hadn't heard about it, I think the word has traveled very fast that the street is now open. If for the 2 or 3 people that don't know about it, they ought to drive down there. It's really very, very nice to drive down that street. There are a couple of issues that the contractor still has to deal with, but essentially it is substantially complete. Broadway, utilities are complete except for some sanitary sewer and some drainage work just east of Haltom Road. Otherwise, they're all complete. Paving on the north side between Jean and Haltom is almost finished. They still got to tie in some of the arterial streets, maybe another 30, 45 days before we open up the north side. But the environmental remediation down on the south side of Broadway, down towards the beach, has been completed. Earlier tonight, let me back up. As far as Lindsay, Revere, and Roxy, earlier tonight the council approved a contract for the paving of those streets. The city took care of the utility work, and in the process, it was originally supposed to be asphalt streets. Further analysis warranted concrete streets. There's a better value. The citizens there have put up with a lot with the dirt streets over the last few weeks, but they'll enjoy these streets much, much better. They're going to start with, I think they're starting with Lindsay. No, they're starting with Roxy, then going to Lindsay and Revere in that order. But hopefully by mid-May they'll start on that project. Mona from Katrine to Haltom, those bids will be issued sometime next month. Harris is still under design. Joy Lee is a CDBG project that the Commissioners Court is going to be awarding tomorrow. They're awarding the street portion of it, the paving portion of it. The city's already taken care of the water and sewer. Rather, they're just taking care of the sewer line and the service lines. The water line is good. The water main is very good, so we don't need to deal with that. But the Commissioners Court is awarding that contract tomorrow. It's probably starting about another month and a half. North Beach and the 820 frontage. Hopefully in 30 days that thing will be open. Don't hold your breath, but hopefully in 30 days. The Midway Bridge project, contractors having some difficulties. Not much has happened in the last 30 days. TxDOT's trying to do more with it, but the opening of that bridge has been pushed back to probably about August. So contractor is having some difficulties there. As far as sanitary sewer, the sanitary sewer replacement project for Little Fossil Creek, the drainage project. This is the B&H utilities that we've been talking about recently. Thought we came to an agreement with B&H as far as dealing with the problem areas. They were not able to live up to their end of it. The city had no alternative but to terminate the contract. The areas of which have already been started but have not been completed, they'll be included in the phase 2 portion of that project. Any areas that B&H hadn't started will be included in the phase 3, so that's still a little ways down the road, but that contract has been terminated and we're proceeding to remedy the situation. One area in this, as far as sanitary sewer goes, I was remiss in omitting a project. The manhole rehab project, Phase 2, is not in here. About 2 months ago, the council awarded a contract to Enviro Remediation. It covers about 800 manholes for about $1.4 million. The project's in the process of, currently, it's about 10% complete, and it should be finished by the end of the year. And I apologize for not including that in your report, but it will be included in there in the future. The building projects, the Public Works Facility, if you haven't been out there, there's a pad, there's a slab now. In the report, I referenced that the parking lot will be poured next week or sometime this week. Well, they snuck in the parking lot last week, so there's a parking lot out there too. So the contractor is working hard out there, and things are progressing very well. The rec center, piers are being drilled and poured. Contractor came across a little bit of a problem with groundwater. We're dealing with that issue with the geotechnical company and the contractor and the architect. But those, it's just a minor problem that we're foreseeing right now, and we're dealing with that. Just want to remind the public the center is still currently closed for all activities. The staff is in temporary offices in the trailer in the parking lot. Gymnasium will, I guess the gym is open. Is the old gym, George, is the old gym open? Not right now? Okay. The whole thing is still closed. And it'll reopen, the old gym will reopen here in a little bit. The Central Fire Station is also progressing as scheduled. The piers are complete. If you recall, last month, briefed the council of an underground storage tank that we found that we weren't quite aware of that was there, but it has been removed and remediated. So everything is back on schedule there. The last item is the public safety software. We thought the thing would be complete this month. We ran into some hardware issues with some servers. Hopefully it'll be in another 30 days. It'll finally be complete. We haven't quite gone live with the last phase of that, but it's going to be coming very, very shortly. And with that, that completes my report. I'll take any questions that
Councilmember Fowler and then Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Muir, would you like the accolades or the rocks first?
Let's start with the rocks.
Let's start with the rocks. Haley Street, where are we at on Haley Street reconstruction?
I'm not in a position to
Let me
say.
let me address that. That's kind of one that I've dealt with. We're still set for June 1st as the completion date. That's only about a month away. I don't foresee that being a big problem. The last I heard, a week or 10 days ago, the gas company was any day going to be lowering the service lines on Haley. And I think our city crews had also been lowering the water lines. I did drive by there a couple of days ago, and we hadn't started it, obviously. But when all of those services are lowered, we're going to be sending our crews over there, every free person we've got, to get in there and complete that street, cutting it down, and then coming back in with some modifications to the culverts, as well as a new asphalt street will be put in there. And that, weather, I guess, could conceivably play in, but at this point, we're still on track for a June 1st completion.
And that's not going to have any curb and gutter?
No curb and gutter. That is correct.
Okay, so I can hold y'all to June the 1st then.
You can hold him to June
every
I'm going to hold somebody to June the 1st.
The Public Works Director and I are working pretty close on this one. And, we could have a lot of bad weather during May, and that's unforeseeable. So, that, I think, is going to be the only thing that would hold us up from completing that June 1st. But even if it did go beyond that, it can't be by much, I'm sure of that. So.
Okay, we're going to stick with June the 1st.
June 1st works for me.
So. Okay. Have we sent information to Lindsay, Revere, and Roxy Street to the residents on those in the areas that are going to be reconstructed to inform them that they'll be getting a new concrete thoroughfare?
That will be done.
It's already been done. You're not aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom,
Apparently my
Tom's out of
thumb's
the
not
loop.
quite on
he's
the
out of the
pulse
loop
like
on
I
some of
thought.
these things. Nothing against Tom. David Fain can better address that. But I know for a fact that notices were sent again 2 weeks ago, last week. Notices were hand-delivered on those doors at giving the citizens an update on where we were. And I don't think that's the first time that's been done.
We've been updating lots of residents quite often.
Yeah.
And after the rains and stuff, especially some of the heavy rains we've had lately, we've been going back out there with gravel and stuff. As things wash away and become muddy, we realize that's a problem. So we try to put rock out there and gravel to make it as bearable as possibly can.
No, I've been up and down. I think y'all have done, put forth great effort in making it as easy as possible. I guess now for the pluses and the good things, so the citizens will know, we just are going to probably accept a bid for about, what was it in the neighborhood, $590,000 budgeted on these 3 projects, and
Yeah, it's about
390.
Yeah,
We're looking at
390, but the
about
budget amount was 590.
plus or minus $200,000 savings, and we're going to have concrete streets versus asphalt. So thanks to engineering, public works, staff for all y'all's hard work. It'll be a much nicer situation for our residents and for the other citizens.
And the citizens that have called complaining about it, I've explained that to them. Once they understand what's going on, they're very supportive of it, and I really think they'll enjoy the concrete street much.
Well, and this goes to the next. That kind of throws us into that. I've taken time to personally thank. I know it's been much drudgery and a long and awaited, anticipated completion for Carson Street. I want to thank Greg, David Fain for what he's been in. I know Richard stayed on TxDOT to help expedite it as much as possible. I know, Tom, you've dealt with them. Just pretty much everyone that's taken time to do that. I hope that our citizens can realize that, I was affected by Carson Street. I drive up and down it every day to and from work, every single day. And it was a big headache for a long time, but I knew that once it was completed, it would be a first-class situation. And it's funny, I sat for 2 years and drove up and down it and anticipated and was frustrated. And then seems like now I go out of my way to make sure I go down Carson because it's so nice. And if you have that vision, that's in the next 6 months or so, we hope that people can realize if you can understand where Broadway's going to be in 6 months, drive down Carson Street, take just a minute to drive down that and see how nice it is to have a street that's done properly, that's concrete from one end to tip to toe, and it's all the difference in the world. And I want to thank the staff for their hard work and doing what they could. A lot of people didn't realize that was a TxDOT project, very similar to Broadway. We have very little, if almost no control over the time frames and the things that are involved in these projects. I know Mr. Van Nieuwenhuis gets a lot of tail chewings for it. Thank you for taking them, Greg, although they're not, we realize that they're not, your responsibility necessarily, but I hope that people can just bear with us just a little bit longer and realize that the end result's going to be a first class situation, not only for the residents, but for the merchants that are up and down Broadway Street. I think it's going to help develop some of these other pieces of property, and it'll revitalize some of the areas that need revitalization along Broadway. So I want to thank y'all for that, and just keep pressing on and stay on as much as you can.
Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The good news is Carson Street is finished. And for those of you out there who have not traveled up and down Carson Street, I urge you to do so within the speed limit. There is a school zone there, and now that it's nice and smooth, people like to go through there pretty fast. And we've seen officers down there several times in the last couple of weeks, and those school zone tickets are not something you want to take home with you. So be very careful. Use the street, enjoy the street, but remember there's kids out there going to school, and the crosswalks are marked very well, so be careful there. With Carson Street being open, it does tend to cause one to look a little bit further to the west, and we're looking at the Midway Bridge area there. And we started in March, and now we're in August, and I just don't want to see us get to next March before something happens. But here again, the thing that people need to understand is This project is not Haltom City's project, so we can't, we're not hiring the superintendents, we're not firing the superintendents, and if we get in trouble if we go out there and move a sign, don't we, Greg? So, all of you out there who are right now inconvenienced by the fact that you can't get up and down Midway, it is an inconvenience, and we're sorry for it, and we apologize, but here again, it is not the doings of the staff here in Haltom City. We're kind of at the mercy of someone else. And the one question that I had, Greg, about liquidated damages, I know that you had checked into that to see if we were going to be able to participate or if there were any liquidated damages for that project. And I just want to make sure that if there is any money to be received on that we certainly get our portion of it that we deserve, because our citizens are the ones that are being inconvenienced.
I'm still looking into that on the Midway Road Bridge. On what it turns out, it depends on the funding source on what TxDOT used in order to construct the project. For instance, on Carson Street, Richard and I have beat our heads over this, but there is no way that we can get liquidated damages for Carson Street. And that project is, as I'm sure everyone realizes, well over contract time. On the Midway Road Bridge, the contractor's not into liquidated damages yet. The reason being is Midway Road Bridge is one of 4 bridges that he's doing. From talking with TxDOT, his contract time expires sometime over the summer, late summer, so he's not into that yet. I foresee him being past contract time, and that's why I've just started to look in to see if there's any way that the city can receive some of those liquidated damages in that event.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Councilmember Fowler?
Mr. Van Nuys, correct me if I'm wrong. One thing that we as citizens have to understand is, I guess, 1990, somewhere in thereabouts, circa somewhere that area, was my first year on the council. We put funding up for Broadway improvements in 1990.
In fact, I think what had happened, when I was hired, Haltom City had just gotten word that Broadway did receive eligibility to receive the federal funding. And my 10-year anniversary was Saturday. So it was
Correct.
over 10 years ago that we had gotten word. And it was sometime around 95, because 95 is when we had the bond election,
Correct.
where the voters decided they'd sell $10 million in bonds, I think 6.5, 3.5, something like that. And it was in 95 that we actually inked the contract with TxDOT to redo Broadway. And I think it was a year after that that we inked the contract with TxDOT to do Carson.
I guess what I'm getting at is understand that we can be frustrated with some of the aggravations that we have to deal with traveling up and down these for this period of time. We would not be able to fund these projects at all if it were strictly based upon us as taxpayers providing the funding for them. TxDOT provides, which is ultimately is also the citizens of Haltom City, but the citizens of the state of Texas provide funding for a great portion of these projects, the biggest portion. And I know it's frustrating. I know we're all having to deal with it, but it'll be worth it in the long run. And I hope that we can all deal with these frustrations for this period of time and realize that it's not the city dragging their feet. Sometimes it's TxDOT, but we can't kick a gift horse in the mouth, and we have to appreciate the fact that we at least get this funding.
Thank you, Tom. I think we have all of our questions and comments regarding capital improvements. Things are moving forward. We want them to continue to progress on time and within budget. And I think the mayor and council and the citizens will feel very good when that happens. Moving now to item number 13, resignations of board members. Councilmember Williams, I believe you have a resignation.
Yes, sir. The Senior Advisory Board has a member, Kenneth McQuillan. He's moving out of Haltom City and resigning his post as co-chairperson of this board. He's enjoyed working as a liaison on the senior citizens to the Crime Prevention Board over the past years. He regrets having to leave the position, but the move came unexpected. He couldn't pass up the good deal. This is a great group of people to work for, and gives all his sincere thanks to all his help. He has to move down on the lake and retire. So for Mac McQuillan, we wish him the best and thanks him for his help. He turned his resignation, asked for a
Okay, you've
ratification.
heard this resignation by Mr. McQuilkin. If you will, register your response to that to validate that resignation, and that passes by unanimous vote. Are there other resignations of board members? There being none, any appointments or reappointments tonight? There not being any, we move now to item 15 to consider the absences of Councilmember Henderson and Councilmember Hurley. Councilmember Williams?
I think the city secretary spoke with Councilmember Hurley, and he's ill tonight, and I spoke personally with Councilmember Henderson, and he's ill, so I'd like to make a motion we approve their absences.
Okay, we have a motion. Councilmember Markham.
I'll second that, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to excuse the two absences, if you will register your vote, and that is by unanimous vote. The council will move at this time into executive session as authorized by section 551.071 and .072. Any action to be taken will be by the council when we reconvene into open session.